recognizing a quorum, I am calling this meeting of the Cannabis Control Commission to order at 1:30 p.m. on February 7th. I've asked those of you in the back, can you hear me? Great, thank you. Can I ask, is everybody recording this meeting? I think I know the answer. Let me put the public on notice that this meeting is being recorded. Can I ask everybody to put their cell phones on silent or shut them off altogether? Thank you. We're going to do this quickly and efficiently, primarily because at least 80% of the commission and the staff are sick. So we're going to do our best to soldier through. I would encourage anybody that feels like talking to any of us afterwards to do so, but at a safe distance. And we'll do our best to make it through and to keep our executive director alive. That being said, I'm going to not make any comments other than just walk through the agenda. We will have minutes. We do not have minutes from our last meeting. Those are still in process, but those of you that are regular attendees will recall that we went into executive session a while back to discuss the terms of our lease with both Worcester and Boston, and now that those leases have been signed, the minutes from those executive session, or that executive session, can be released, so we'll discuss and vote on those. The executive director will make his standard report giving us an update on status with respect to licensing and registration. And then we have 5 final licenses for review and vote, the discussion and vote, and 5 provisional licenses also for discussion, review, and vote. After that, there are 2 topics for commission discussion and vote. One is we are going to give an update on the social equity program, and specifically the executive director is going to review a request for proposal that he would like the commission to discuss and vote on and approve, so we can get more progress on that front. And then secondly, we'll go through, and Commissioner Doyle's voice will allow her to do so, some updates to our community guidance document. That's it. As I said, we're going to take our time, but hopefully have a relatively quick and efficient meeting. Thank you. With that, Mr. Executive Director, oh, I'm sorry, let's do the minutes first. So, as I mentioned, minutes are from October 9th, 2018, from executive session, where we discussed the terms of the lease for our headquarters and our satellite facility. Now that those leases have been signed, as I said, we can release the minutes and put them into the record. Can I ask the commission, have you had a chance to review those minutes from October 9th? Are there any questions? Can I ask for a motion, please, to approve the minutes from the executive session on October 9th, 2018?
So moved. Second.
Let the record show Commissioner Doyle made a motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Flanagan. All in favor?
Aye.
Let the record show the commission unanimously approved the minutes. Thank you, and we'll get caught up with our minutes from our last meeting at our next meeting. Mr. Executive Director, your report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You'll see shortly the usual slides as far as our application portal and the data we're able to extract from it on an ongoing basis. You'll see again that there's 2,687 total applications that are pending in some way or manner or form. Of those, 281 have submitted at least one packet for consideration. 181 have been withdrawn, and 2,118 remain incomplete. The breakdown of those 281 is available on the right-hand side. The next data slide for review is the 278 applications that have submitted all 4 packets that are therefore under consideration by the commission. First, for completeness, and we'll get into later the various steps. That said, those 278, that represents a difference of 15 from our last meeting. The breakdown you can see in the table there. Of those 278, 135 have secured priority status as existing RMDs, 4 have secured priority status as economic empowerment applicants, and 139 are general applicants. Those 278 applications represent 140 separate entities.
Thank you.
This slide here represents some demographic data that's gathered through our application process. These are applications that represent disadvantaged business enterprises. Again, this is the 270 that have submitted all 4 packets, and you'll see that predominantly 86.3 have not identified as a DBE business. And again, this is information that is supplied by the applicant and captured through our licensing portal.
Questions? Thank you.
This slide here represents where those 278 are in our process. Again, as I indicated, the first step in our review is to review for completeness. There are 82 that are awaiting that review. 63 have been reopened or otherwise require additional information submitted to the commission. 21 are waiting third-party responses. Again, the third parties are our third-party background check vendor, as well as the municipality within which the applicant proposes to place the business. 5 are before you for commission review or based on the staff recommendation, and 107 of those have been considered by the commission to date.
Thanks.
This slide here is a familiar map which represents those 278 and where they are located or proposed to be located across Massachusetts. And just for continuing information, the breakdown of those 15 where they come from are 1 additional in Berkshire County, 1 additional in Franklin County, 1 additional in Hampshire County, 1 additional in Hampden County, 3 additional in Worcester County, 1 additional in Middlesex, 3 in Essex, 1 in Plymouth, and again 3 in Bristol. That represents the 15 new applications that have been since the commission's last meeting.
Thank you.
This next slide is of those pending retail applications where they're also proposed across Massachusetts. The previous slide indicated that of those 15 that are new, 5 of them are retail applications. That breaks down into 1 additional in Worcester County, 2 additional in Essex County, 1 additional in Bristol, and 1 additional in Plymouth, representing the 5 new retail applications. This next slide and these next several slides represent the demographic information, or sorry, just information extracted relative to agent applications. There are 3,236 total agent applications that have been processed or identified in the Commission's portal. Of those, 472 are pending establishment agents, 6 are pending laboratory agents, 233 have been withdrawn, 646 remain incomplete, and to date, 1,804 have been approved. Those 478, as they break down, or 419 have not yet been reviewed. 53 have been reopened and require additional information. 6 are awaiting a third-party response in the context of agents. As you'll recall, laboratory agents require fingerprint checks. What those 6 are waiting a response on, and of course, because they're approved on an ongoing basis, 0 are currently awaiting approval.
Thank you.
Again, relative to agents, you'll see here the breakdown is that 67.7% identify as male, 31.8% as female, 9 individuals declined to answer, and 2 identified their own gender. Similarly, as far as demographics breakdown, as far as race and ethnicity, you'll see that of the 2,282 that have been processed or awaiting review, predominantly 71.9% have identified as white, and again, the breakdown's on the left-hand side.
Any questions before we move on to the medical program? Okay, thank you.
This next slide indicates some of the data that's relative to the medical use of marijuana program, which you'll recall was transferred at the end of December. My expectation is that by the next meeting, we will have a little bit more information, as well as potentially, again, more information to review, similar to that information which we're able to capture through our portal for the adult use side. But this is something we continue to work with the staff in the medical program, and as a commission staff, to capture and gather that information on an ongoing basis in a more frequent and again, ideally in a much more robust way. But this information, as you see before you, represents that there are 103 RMDs that have provisional certificates of registration, 3 RMDs that have final certificates but have not yet been approved to sell, and 49 RMDs with final certificates and are in fact selling or dispensing to patients.
Questions? Okay.
And this slide has been built out a little bit since our last meeting, but it's something we can, I think, continue to build out as we dig into the social equity program applications that have been submitted to the commission. You'll see here that we have 213 applications that have been opened or considered, or not considered yet, but opened and interacted with in the portal. Of those, 111 have been submitted and are pending review, 102 remain incomplete. And some of the demographic information that we're able to extract on a pretty regular basis. Of those 111, the breakdown is that 30 have identified as female, 81 as male, 11 have indicated a farmer designation, 6 veteran, 3 Asian, 47 as Black or African American, 13 as Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish, 20 have identified as 2 or more, 19 as white, 4 as other, and 5 declined to answer. Again, this is information that as we begin to process applications, we're able to extract on an ongoing basis and hopefully report back on frequently.
Thank you. Questions? Anything else in your report, Mr. Executive Director?
Not at this time.
Thank you. So the next agenda item is that we have staff recommendations on 5 final licenses, and the Executive Director will lead us through the conversation, then we'll have discussion and vote. There are 4 for Berkshire Roots Incorporated. They were all co-located, if I'm correct. So we'll do one discussion, but 4 votes. The 4 licenses are Berkshire Roots Incorporated, MR 281585 for retail, MP 281427 for product manufacturing, MX 281322 manufactured marijuana transported with other existing marijuana establishment license, and finally MC 281590 Tier 2 indoor cultivation. Mr. Executive Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you indicated, the entity under consideration is Berkshire Roots Incorporated. The proposed location is 501 Dalton Avenue in Pittsfield. Those licenses being sought are that of a retailer, product manufacturer, marijuana transporter with an existing establishment license, and lastly is a cultivation Tier 2, which authorizes up to 10,000 square feet of canopy. Background as far as the licensee in this context, all of these licenses were approved for provisional license on October 4th, 2018. Since that date, they've paid all their applicable license fees, and no new information has been reported to the Commission staff regarding their organizational structure since the issuance of those provisional licenses, and no new information has been discovered by Commission staff regarding the suitability of the licensee or any of the individuals or entities that were previously disclosed since the issuance of those licenses. The initial inspection occurred at this facility on November 28th. The licensee's establishment was inspected by Commission staff and found to be in full compliance with our regulations. There was no evidence that was discovered during those inspections that indicated the establishment was not in compliance with any of the applicable state, local codes, bylaws, ordinances, or regulations. And again, a highlight of some of the things that we review are relative to security, verifying that all their security-related requirements are in full compliance. That includes the security of entrances and exits, visitor procedures, limited access areas, verification of a primary and backup security company, presence of a perimeter and duress alarms, and lastly, that all of their customers comply with the Commission's requirements. We also evaluated their inventory and storage protocols and verified that their inventory-related requirements were in full compliance. That includes secure storage of marijuana and marijuana products, sanitation and pest control measures, and lastly, their inventory controls and procedures. This is also a cultivation license. We measured the total canopy of their 5 separate rooms. They have a mother canopy of 1,344 square feet, and their veg and flower rooms total 7,668 square feet, for a total canopy of 9,012 square feet, which was within the provisional license that was issued by the Commission of up to 10,000 square feet. As this is also a product manufacturing license that's being sought, we verified that all their manufacturing-related requirements are in full compliance. That includes their proposed product compliance and the safety and sanitation and security of the area and its products. And also, again, because this is a retail license that's being sought, we verified that their retail-related requirements are in compliance, including the verification of identifications for access, the layout of their sales floor, the availability and contents of adult-use consumer education materials, that they have an appropriate patient consultation area, and lastly, that they have a plan to ensure that 35% of their inventory is preserved at all times for patients. They're also seeking the transportation with an existing establishment license. The enforcement staff verified that all the transportation-related requirements are in compliance. That includes inspecting their vehicle and their staffing requirements, their communication and reporting requirements, and lastly, their inventory and manifest requirements. Commission staff recommends a final license with the following conditions: that the licensee may cultivate, harvest, possess, prepare, produce, and otherwise acquire marijuana, but shall not dispense, sell, or otherwise transport marijuana to other establishments or to consumers until upon inspection receiving permission from the Commission to commence full operations. The licensee is subject to inspection to ascertain compliance with the Commission's regulations. The licensee remains suitable for licensure. The licensee shall cooperate with and provide information to the Commission staff. This licensee has demonstrated their compliance with the laws and regulations of the Commonwealth, and the suitability for licensure is therefore recommended for a final license. As part of the approval process, the Commission staff seeks authorization to take all necessary steps and actions to review their compliance with these conditions and to approve the commencement of their operations.
Thank you, Mr. Executive Director. Before I ask for discussion and then 4 separate votes, as I mentioned, I just wanted to say that the motion I will ask for will include the condition that we discussed last time about being notified of any changes. So if our general counsel could find that language for us so that we can add that condition when we get to the motion and the vote, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
I have the.
Oh, you have it?
General counsel, if you need it, I have the.
Great. So that being said, before we get into motions, are there questions or any concerns that anybody wants to raise with any of the four that we're going to vote on separately? So then I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the staff recommendation for Berkshire Roots Incorporated MR 281585, subject to the conditions that are in the staff recommendation plus the additional condition, which Commissioner McBride, if you would add, please.
That licensure is subject to notification to the commission of any update to written operations plans required by 935 CMR 1051 prior to the issuance of a commencement of operations, and that commission staff be given adequate opportunity to review said plans at the business location or the location where any such plans are maintained in the normal course of business.
Thank you. So then can I have a motion, please, to approve the staff recommendation, subject to the additional condition just articulated by Commissioner McBride?
So moved.
And a second, please.
Second.
Let the record show Commissioner Doyle made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner McBride. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Commissioner Tyler?
Abstain.
Let the record show that the commission approved the staff recommendation by a vote of 4 in favor. Commissioners McBride, Hoffman, Doyle, and Flanagan. Commissioner Tyler abstained. Thank you. Next, Berkshire Roots Incorporated MP 281427, product manufacturing. The condition was only for the retail, is that correct?
Well, no, I think.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I was clear. So then I would like to ask for a motion to approve the staff recommendation on this license, subject to the additional condition articulated by Commissioner McBride. Can I have such a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Let the record show Commissioner Flanagan made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Doyle. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Commissioner Tyler?
Abstain.
Let the record show that the commission approved the staff recommendation on Berkshire Roots Incorporated MP 281427 with a vote of 4 in favor. Commissioners McBride, Hoffman, Doyle, and Flanagan. Commissioner Tyler abstained. Next, I'd like to ask for a motion, please, to approve the staff recommendation for Berkshire Roots Incorporated MX 281322, marijuana transporter with other existing marijuana establishment license, subject to the additional condition articulated by Commissioner McBride. Can I have such a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Let the record show Commissioner Doyle made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner McBride. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Commissioner Tyler?
Abstain.
Let the record show that the commission approved the staff recommendation by a vote of 4 in favor. Commissioners McBride, Hoffman, Doyle, and Flanagan. Commissioner Tyler abstained. Lastly, for Berkshire Roots Incorporated MC 281590, Tier 2 indoor cultivation. Again, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the staff recommendation, subject to the additional condition requested by Commissioner McBride.
So moved. Second.
Let the record show Commissioner Flanagan made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Doyle. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Commissioner Tyler?
Abstain.
Let the record show that the commission approved the staff recommendation on Berkshire Roots Incorporated MC 281590 by a vote of 4 in favor. Commissioners McBride, Hoffman, Doyle, and Flanagan. Commissioner Tyler abstained. Thank you. Next on the agenda is Caroline's Cannabis LLC, MR 281274. Mr. Executive Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you indicated, the entity in this application is Caroline's Cannabis LLC. The proposed address is 640 Douglas Street in Uxbridge. The license being sought is that of a retailer. This licensee was approved for a provisional license on October 18th. Since then, they've paid all their applicable license fees. No new information has been reported to the commission staff regarding their organizational structure. And no new information has been discovered by commission staff regarding the suitability of the licensee or any of the individuals or entities that were previously disclosed since the issuance of that provisional license. The initial inspection occurred at this facility on December 28th. The licensee's establishment was inspected by staff and found to be in full compliance with the requirements of our regulations. There's no evidence that was discovered during the inspection that indicated that the establishment is not in compliance with any of the applicable state, local codes, bylaws, ordinances, or regulations. And again, a highlight of the items that we expect for include that of security requirements, including the security of all entrances and exits, their visitor procedures, limited access areas, verification of a primary and backup security company, the presence of perimeter and duress alarms, and that all cameras comply with the Commission's requirements. We also review their inventory and storage requirements, including the secure storage of marijuana and marijuana products, the sanitation and pest control measures, and lastly, the inventory controls and procedures. As this is a retail operation, there was no cultivation or product manufacturing elements that were applicable. We did, however, review their retail operation and verified that all of their retail-related requirements are in full compliance, which includes the verification of identifications for access, the layout of their sales floor, the availability and contents of adult-use consumer education materials. This establishment will not be transporting marijuana to or from their facility, and they intend to purchase their products and have it delivered by other marijuana establishments. So there's no transportation-related inspection. Therefore, the Commission staff recommends a final license with the following conditions: that the licensee may possess and otherwise acquire marijuana, but shall not dispense, sell, or otherwise transport marijuana to other establishments or to consumers until upon inspection receiving permission from the Commission to commence their full operations. The licensee is subject to inspection to ascertain compliance with the Commission's regulations. The licensee remains suitable for licensure, and lastly, that the licensee shall cooperate with and provide information to the Commission staff. This licensee has demonstrated their compliance with the laws and regulations of the Commonwealth and the suitability for licensure and is therefore recommended for a final license. And as part of the approval, Commission staff seeks authorization to take all necessary steps to review compliance with those conditions and to approve the commencement of their operations.
Thank you, Mr. Executive Director. Before I ask for a motion, are there questions or comments? Commissioner Doyle.
Yeah, this is not a request for a condition of any kind, but just a request to the compliance team where cannabis is in the actual name of the company to be mindful of any outdoor signage and just keep that in mind as we approach final licensure, as we approach notice to commence operations.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Bright?
I would like to add the aforementioned.
Yeah, no, I'm going to ask for a motion. I will ask for that. Anything else? Great. Then I would like to ask for a motion, please, to approve the staff recommendation for Caroline's Cannabis LLC, MR 281274 retail, subject to the additional condition requested by Commissioner McBride. Can I have such a motion?
So,
Thank you. Can I have a second, please?
second.
Let the record show Commissioner Tittle made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Doyle. All in favor?
Aye.
Let the record show the Commission unanimously approved the staff recommendation for Caroline's Cannabis LLC, MR 281274, subject to the additional condition requested by Commissioner McBride. Thank you. I think that's it for final licenses for today. Thank you very much. So you can now rest your vocal cords, and we'll put Mr. Pockman under the heat lamp. We have 5, correct, provisional licenses, Mr. Pockman?
That's correct.
And I haven't read ahead, so are the 3 apothecaries co-located, or are they 2 separate?
The first 2 will be co-located.
First 2 are co-located, thank you very much. So let's begin the discussion then with the first 2. Apotheca, so isn't there supposed to be an E there?
That's how they spell it.
That's fine, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say anything. Apotheca Incorporated, MC 281276, Tier 5 Indoor Cultivation, and Apotheca Incorporated, MPN 281445, Product Manufacturer. Mr. Butler?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you stated, this is Apotheca Inc. The planned location is 99 Development Road in Pittsburgh, Mass. The 2 licenses being sought here are a Tier 5 cultivation license indoor, which allows up to 40,000 square feet of canopy, and a product manufacturing license. They also have an additional application, which will be reviewed next, for retail operations. The individuals associated with this application include the following: Andrew Young, Rashmil Lakash, Moshe Blake, Kari Cutler, Leon Nitka as directors, Joseph Lakash, Daniel Cotton, and Michael Thompson as close associates. One entity is associated with this establishment. It's Arcan LLC. They are the source of the debt capital for the proposed establishment. The applicant has reported that Arcan LLC does not have any equity interest in this establishment. This applicant is an RMD priority applicant, and the planned adult use business will be co-located with the RMD business in Pittsburgh. The applicant did secure and provide certification of a host community agreement, which was agreed upon on July 6th. The applicant conducted a community outreach meeting on April 25th. The Commission did receive a municipal response from Pittsburgh on October 19th, stating that the applicant was in compliance with all local codes and ordinances. The applicant did submit a positive impact plan, and that plan includes the following. Institute hiring practices that will prioritize the hiring of individuals from disproportionate areas with a focus on Fitchburg. Conduct industry-specific educational seminars in cultivation, manufacturing, retail operations, and overall business training. Partner with or support organizations providing jail diversion and restorative justice programs. Provide financial mentoring services or host organization providing these services. And lastly, hold monthly informational sessions regarding the process for sealing and expunging criminal records. There were no concerns arising from the background checks on any of the individuals or entities associated with the application. There were some disclosures of past civil or criminal actions or occupational license issues. These disclosures did not raise any suitability issues. The applicant did submit a timeline where they stated that they could be operational within 3 months from receiving their provisional licenses. The proposed hours of operation are Monday through Sunday, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. The applicant did submit all of the required summaries, and all of the summaries were determined to be substantially compliant with the Commission's regulations. The applicant submitted a diversity plan which included the following. Host career fairs in underrepresented and minority communities. Utilize suppliers who are committed to diversity and inclusion. Encourage employees from diverse groups to refer applications for employment. Establish recruitment efforts at higher learning institutions. And lastly, develop relationships with organizations serving minorities, women, people of all gender identities and sexual orientations, veterans, and persons with disabilities for employment referrals. As this is a cultivation application, they did submit a cultivation plan that demonstrated their ability to comply with the Commission's regulations. As it's also a product manufacturing license, they did submit a list of their proposed items that they plan on producing, which includes the following. Dissolving tablets and strips, tinctures, nasal and oral sprays, suppositories, oils, waxes, shatters, butters, live resins, saps, taffies, crumbles, moon rocks, creams, salves, lotions, body butters, topicals, dermal patches, capsules, cooking oils, beverages, sauces, dips, baked goods, confections, chocolates, candies, gums, sugars, salts, syrups, butters, mints, and teas. Therefore, the Commission staff do recommend issuing a provisional license with the following conditions. One, that final license is subject to inspection to ascertain compliance with the Commission's regulations. Secondly, final license is subject to inspection to ascertain compliance with applicable state laws and local codes, ordinances, and bylaws. Third, the applicant shall cooperate with and provide information to Commission staff. And lastly, that a provisional licensure is subject to the appropriate license fee payment. The applicant has demonstrated compliance with the laws and regulations of the Commonwealth and suitability for licensure. Therefore, the applicant is recommended for a provisional license.
Thank you, Mr. Potvin. We're going to take 2 separate votes, but before I ask for a motion, are there questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Flanagan.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like some more information from the plan for positive impact. I know that they're located in Fitchburg, however, in various parts of this plan, it says that they're going to be a positive impact in various areas. So I'm just curious if it's just Fitchburg or if there are other disproportionately impacted communities that they're going to participate in their program. And then also, under the continuing efforts piece of this, there is a paragraph that says that they hope to be a part of the community, but then there's a list of 7 things that they say that they may do. And again, I know it's a stickler, but the may versus shall thing is kind of important, I think, when it comes to this.
I do
So,
sticker on that.
I'm just looking to see that this is everything they're going to do, absolutely, or if there's just a possibility, because I think that it's a good program overall, but some more information is needed.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Commissioner Tittle?
Just one comment, which is also on the positive impact plan. There's a commitment to develop measurable goals listed, but doesn't say what they are. So I would ask them to resubmit with any definition of those measurable goals.
Thanks. Other questions or comments? Commissioner McBride?
Similar to the request from the last product manufacturer licenses, first license that we're looking at, we can have additional detail on the offerings that are listed here. If they're going to be doing, I think specifically baked goods, confections, chocolates, candies, if we could have a sense of what types, flavors, some more detail about the product offerings would be helpful, so that as we're starting to build our database of what is available in Massachusetts, we have a real understanding
comments or questions? Okay, then let me ask for a motion, please, to approve the staff recommendation for Apothca Incorporated MCN 281276 Tier 5 indoor cultivation.
So moved.
Have a second, please?
Second.
Let the record show Commissioner Flanagan made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Doyle. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Let the record show the staff, the commission unanimously approved the staff recommendation on MCN 281276. Thank you. Can I ask for a motion to approve the staff recommendation for Apothca Incorporated MPN 281445 product manufacturer?
So moved.
Have a second, please?
Second.
Let the record show Commissioner Doyle made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Flanagan. All in favor?
Aye.
Let the record show that the commission unanimously approved the staff recommendation for NPN 281445. Thank you. Next is Apothca Incorporated MRN 281447 for retail. Mr. Potvin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just for the sake of being concise, I'll only announce any of the items that are different from the previous executives.
Great, thank you very much.
As you stated, this is Apothca Inc. The planned location is 491 Linway, Lynn, Mass. The license being sought here is a retail license. All of the individuals and entities are, from the previous executive summary, are the same as in this one. They are still an RMD priority applicant. The applicant here did execute a host community agreement with Lynn on August 14th. They conducted a community outreach meeting on May 16th. We did receive a response from Lynn on November 7th stating that the applicant was in compliance with all local codes and ordinances. The positive impact plan is the same as previously stated. Suitability review, the disclosures, and the fact that there were no concerns is the same as the previous executive summary. The applicant did submit a timeline stating that they could be operational within 3 months of provisional licensure. The proposed hours here are also Monday through Sunday, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. They did submit all of their required summaries, and all of the summaries were determined to be substantially compliant with the commission's regulations. They did submit a diversity plan for this application with the same proposed programs as the previous applications. As this is a retail application, they did submit a plan for obtaining marijuana and marijuana products. They state that they are a vertically integrated RMD that has also applied and been approved subsequently for adult use cultivation and product manufacturing licenses, and the applicant plans to provide its own marijuana product. Therefore, commission staff do recommend issuing a provisional license with the following conditions. First, the final license is subject to inspection to ascertain compliance with the commission's regulations. Second, final license is subject to inspection to ascertain compliance with applicable state laws and local codes, ordinances, and bylaws. Third, the applicant shall cooperate with and provide information to commission staff. And lastly, that the provisional license is subject to the payment of the appropriate license fee. The applicant has demonstrated compliance with the laws and regulations of the Commonwealth and suitability for licensure. Therefore, the applicant is recommended for a provisional license.
Thank you, Mr. Potvin. Questions or comments? I'm going to assume that I will ask for that in the motion. Any other comments? Then I would like to ask for a motion to approve the staff recommendation on Apothca Incorporated MRN 281447 for retail with the requests that were made for the previous two Apothca licenses embedded into the approval.
So moved.
Thank you. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Let the record show Commissioner Doyle made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Title. All in favor?
Aye.
Let the record show the commission unanimously approved the staff recommendation for MN 281447, subject to the request for additional information. Next, Modell's Edibles LLC, MBN 281356, microbusiness, but for product manufacturing only. And Mr. Executive Director, is this the third microbusiness that has come up for licensure? Great, that's good. That's in progress. Go ahead, Mr. Potvin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you stated, this is Modell's Edibles LLC. The proposed location is 660 Riverside Drive in Northampton, Mass. As you stated, this is a micro-business application, and they are seeking only product manufacturing operation for this license. The individuals associated with this application are Noel Pissino and Mark Bode, both as executives. And as part of the review of this application, the applicants did have to demonstrate that they've been residents of Massachusetts for 12 months or longer, and they did so. There's no other entities other than the applicant that appear to have direct or indirect authority over the establishment. This applicant was a general applicant. They did provide certification that a host community agreement was executed on June 5th. They conducted a community outreach meeting on May 22nd. We did receive a municipal response on December 10th stating that the applicant was in compliance with all local ordinances and bylaws. The applicant did submit a positive impact plan, which included the following: conduct annual industry-specific educational seminars in Springfield, Holyoke, Amherst, and Greenfield. Provide scholarship opportunities, training, and mentorship for women from areas of disproportionate impact. And lastly, instituting recruiting and training programs that will prioritize the hiring of individuals from disproportionately affected areas. There were no concerns arising from the background checks on any of the individuals or entities associated with this application. There also were no disclosures of any past civil or criminal actions, occupational license issues, or any business interests in any other jurisdictions. The applicant submitted a timeline where they stated that they could be operational within 2 months of being issued a provisional license. The proposed hours of operation are Monday through Sunday, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. The applicant did submit all the required summaries, and all the summaries were determined to be substantially compliant with the Commission's regulations. The applicant did submit a diversity plan, which included the following: provided scholarships, business training, and mentorships with a focus on women re-entering the workforce. Provide employment opportunities for minorities, veterans, people with disabilities, and people of all gender identities and sexual orientations. Provide a tutoring program for employees who utilize English as a second language in order to promote advancement opportunities. And lastly, participate in job fairs. As this is a product, a micro business with a product manufacturing operation only, they did submit a list of their proposed products, and they include fudge, saltwater taffy, vegan gummy squares, and marshmallow cereal treats. Therefore, Commission staff do recommend issuing a provisional license with the following conditions. First, that final license is subject to inspection to ascertain compliance with the Commission's regulations. Second, final license is subject to inspection to ascertain compliance with applicable state laws and local codes, ordinances, and bylaws. The applicant shall cooperate with and provide information to Commission staff. And lastly, that the provisional license is subject to the appropriate license fee payment. The applicant has demonstrated compliance with the laws and regulations of the Commonwealth and suitability for licensure. Therefore, the applicant is recommended for a provisional license.
Thank you, Mr. Poppy. Questions or comments before I ask for a motion? Commissioner Flanagan?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say that I appreciate the thoroughness of their positive impact plan, and I have no concerns.
Other comments or questions? Then I ask for a motion, please, to approve the staff recommendation for Goodell's Edibles LLC, MBN 281356, micro business product manufacturing only.
So moved. Second.
Let the record show that Commissioner Flanagan made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Doyle. All in favor?
Aye.
Let the record show that the Commission unanimously approved the staff recommendation for MBN 281356. Thank you. One more to go, Mr. Bachman, Garden Remedies Incorporated, MRN 281942, retail. Okay. Mr. Travis, recusing yourself. Don't go too far. Ms. Bachman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you stated, this is Garden Remedies Incorporated. The proposed location is 416 Boston Post Road in Marlborough, Mass. The license being sought here is a retail license. The applicant has been approved for a provisional license previously for the following operations: a Tier 3 indoor cultivation, a product manufacturer, and an additional retail license.
The additional retail license in Newton, if I'm correct?
I'm not positive.
Okay, thank you. I'll go back to my notes. Sorry. Go on.
The individuals associated with this application are Karen Muncasey, Jeffrey Harold, Karen Hawks, Michael Climo, Sean Mack, and Katie Tenenbaum. The entity that's associated with this application, besides the applicant himself, is RMD Holdings LLC, which is an entity contributing initial capital. The applicant is an RMD priority applicant, and they do have an FCR for dispensing, cultivation, and processing. The proposed establishment here will be co-located with the RMD in Marlborough. The applicant did submit proof that a host community agreement was executed on August 28th. They did submit proof that a community outreach meeting was held on October 1st. We did receive a response from the municipality on December 20th stating that the applicant was in compliance with all local ordinances and bylaws. The applicant submitted a positive impact plan, which included the following: assist individuals negatively harmed by cannabis prohibition, and launch a catalyst mentoring program to provide individuals harmed by marijuana prohibition and individuals approved as economic empowerment applicants with the skills and knowledge needed to participate in the marijuana industry. This program will be provided at no cost to the participants. There were no concerns arising from the background checks on any of the individuals or entities. There also were no disclosures of any civil or criminal actions, occupational license issues, or any business interests in any other jurisdictions. The applicant did submit a timeline that stated that they could be operational no later than March of 2019. The applicant's proposed hours of operation on Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., Sunday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. The applicant did submit all the applicable summaries of plans, policies, and procedures, and they were all determined to be substantially compliant with the Commission's regulations. The applicant submitted a diversity plan which included the following: promote and maintain a diverse staff and foster an environment of inclusion, participate in job fairs, engage with community stakeholders for the purpose of recruitment, actively seek out diverse suppliers that can provide goods and services, and lastly, train management on how to address and recognize bias. As this is a retail application, they did submit a plan for obtaining marijuana. They did say that they are a vertically integrated RMD that has also been provisionally approved previously for cultivation and product manufacturing operations. The applicant plans to provide its own marijuana products. Therefore, Commission staff do recommend issuing a provisional license with the following conditions. First, that final license is subject to inspection to ascertain compliance with the Commission's regulations. Second, final license is subject to inspection to ascertain compliance with applicable state laws and local codes, ordinances, and bylaws. Third, the applicant shall cooperate with and provide information to Commission staff. And last, that the provisional license is subject to the payment of the appropriate license fee payment. The applicant here has demonstrated compliance with the laws and regulations of the Commonwealth and suitability for licensure. Therefore, the applicant is recommended for a provisional license.
Thank you, Mr. Poppin. Before I ask for a motion, are there questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Flanagan?
as with the other impact, it's the same impact plan as the other licensees, I just have the same questions with regards to more details of the education workshops that will participate.
Other questions or comments? Then can I ask for a motion? We'll do a voice vote here. So can I ask for a motion, please, to approve staff recommendation for Garden Remedies Incorporated, MRN 281942, retail.
So moved.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Let the record show that Commissioner Doyle made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner McBride. Commissioner McBride, your vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Hoffman, aye. Commissioner Doyle?
Aye.
Commissioner Flanagan?
Aye.
Let the record show that the Commission approved the staff recommendation for Garden Remedies Incorporated, MRN 281942, by a vote of 4 in favor. Commissioners McBride, Hoffman, Doyle, and Flanagan, with Commissioner title being refused. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Potvin, and yes, thanks for coming back, Mr. Potvin. Appreciate, as always, the hard work of the staff on this and the diligent work. Thank you. Those are the only licenses at this moment to be considered. And let's continue with the agenda. The next item on the agenda is a discussion of the equity program, starting with a discussion of an RFP that the executive director is asking for Commission's approval for. If you could lead this conversation, Mr. Executive Director, and provide some context, that'd be great.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So there's I guess a number of items relative to the social equity program we wanted to provide the Commission an update on, but then also seek approval for a number of things as well. So it's hopefully a comprehensive approach in demonstrating to the Commission, I think certainly a vision for the program, and I think a sustained commitment to its ultimate success. So as the Commission will recall, back I think it was in August, we, as a Commission, issued request for qualifications that ultimately led to the identification of a number of vendors that were deemed to have been qualified to work with the Commission. That would have led to ultimately another procurement, described as a mini RFP, to just those isolated vendors. In the course of developing, I guess, an ongoing and sustained strategy to finalize that procurement, to really reach the next iteration of that procurement, we identified a contract model that I think would be more advantageous to us long term, which is the ability to enter into a master agreement with any number of entities. This is most often used in the context of statewide contracts, where there's a broad need to, say for instance, the Commission uses statewide contracts for the procurement of water or other kind of office supplies or things like that. This obviously is a much more unique situation where we as a Commission would not be entering into a statewide contract for other agencies to use, but could leverage that contract model to make sure that all of the vendors that we ultimately procure and contract with are on the same exact terms, and it's a very uniform approach across the board. Because that initial RFQ did not envision that master agreement model or process, based on a number of different conversations we've had across the Commonwealth, the decision is being made and recommended to you to consider entering or issuing a new RFP and a much broader RFP that ultimately will end up in a master agreement relationship with any of the subsequent vendors that may be successful in their process to bid and respond. So before you today for your consideration is that RFP, a request for proposals, that would ultimately lead to a master agreement, thus allowing us to build out a very uniform term for any of the coursework and curriculum required across the social equity program. So I'm happy to walk you through just a lot of those details and kind of what we're envisioning for a time frame or process. I think most important is that time is of the essence with everything that we do relative to this program. But I think most important is an inherent in everything that we do relative to this program is desire to get it right and do it correctly and do it in a meaningful way and not in any sort of half-hearted or way that might actually jeopardize the long-term success of the program. So here, what we're envisioning, I think what we've really tried to spell out in this procurement is exactly the vision for this program. And I have to give a lot of credit to a lot of staff that I think have put a lot of time and energy into this. Most importantly, Shakia Scott, our Director of Community Outreach, Erica Schiavelli, our Chief of Staff, certainly our legal team, Christine, Pauline, as far as developing the real core content that's before you. But I think everyone that I've seen work on this project is frankly inspired by the mission behind it. So that said, we still envision the 4 different tracks that were discussed previously. We're maintaining certainly that commitment relative to the entrepreneurial track, the entry, re-entry, the core track, as well as the ancillary track. In total, that envisions 42 separate elements or curriculums or courses that would need to be taught. Some obviously similar across the board relative to introduction to the industry or other kind of elements that would be consistent across. We then go into an effort to really spell those courses out and what we're looking to get from vendors as far as the learning objectives we would hope to secure and obtain for any of the program participants. And so hopefully what this will do is really demonstrate to any vendors that may respond that there is a vision behind this program, one that is articulated, I think, really well in a particular depth, but also something that would help them in developing their own responses. So what we get as a result is very complete responses. That said, if the Commission is agreeable and amenable to this approach, we would hope to issue this procurement as soon as humanly possible. I'm hesitant to say as early as today or tomorrow, but certainly within, I think, pretty significant effort behind getting it done as soon as possible and published as soon as possible, thus allowing us to begin to accept responses, budgeting in sufficient time for vendors to ask us questions, for us to respond to those questions, and ideally getting responses in early April. Then allowing us to evaluate those responses on a team basis as we have for every procurement prior to then, if necessary, going to presentations from each of the vendors that may be selected to move forward in that process. Ultimately bringing back a recommendation of the Commission, I would say, by mid to late May, and then in the meantime, as the Commission may have noticed in the past, there sometimes is not significant, but a time budgeted for entering into a procurement. Entering into a contract after that procurement is finished. The advantage here behind the master agreement is everybody enters into the same contract. It is therefore not individual contracts that need to be negotiated independently from one another. We can, in the background, in this time, as folks are contemplating their responses to this procurement, be developing that master agreement. And so as a result, I'm confident we'll be able to contract in pretty short order. Again, that's kind of the vision behind this. I want to acknowledge the vendors that work with us in the RFQ. I want to thank them for their investment in our process to date. I think we learned a great deal from that RFQ, and I think what hopefully folks will see is that a lot of that learning experience to date has been really embedded and really turned this procurement into a much more robust and I hopefully a complete picture for vendors to get a sense of what the Commission is seeking in this new procurement. Happy to take any questions.
So, Mr. Executive Director, I believe my preference would be as follows. Prior to discussion and vote on this, you had mentioned that there are other parts of the social equity program that you wanted to discuss and in some cases request a vote on. I think it would be useful to have that context about the other topics, and then we'll come back and discuss and vote on the RP and the other issues that you raised as well, if that's okay.
Of course.
Thank you.
So something we've spent a lot of time thinking about in addition to the procurement vehicle and ultimately getting into what we think is the right contract model for the vendors we ultimately partner with is what are we going to do in the meantime, knowing that we have, as demonstrated today, a number of applicants that have already stepped forward and signed up, the equivalent of signing up for this program. I think it was at 111, and there's certainly more behind them. Is if this procurement is ongoing, we have a pool of applicants that have demonstrated a willingness to be served by the commission in the social equity program. We, as a commission, certainly as a staff, are encouraged and motivated to provide them with as many tools as possible, but also some programming and getting them into really what I would describe as an orientation seminar of sorts of one-day programming in multiple locations as well, really driven or motivated by where we're seeing a bevy of applications from across the Commonwealth. And that programming is not just, we want it to be substantive and meaningful, but also hopefully identifying a bit of a teaser of what to expect from the program. So a good example will include certainly the introduction to the commission, what the commission's role in the legal cannabis space is, both medical and adult use, what the different tracks themselves entail, and then breaking down even further into the many issues that come along with each of the tracks, including the application process, our compliance and inspectional pieces, what ownership and control represent, the municipal versus state processes, business planning and creation, and different financial elements, our fee structure, what we go into from our background check standpoint, also trying to partner with other state agencies that are relevant in a lot of the work that we're doing, including the Supplier Diversity Office, the Department of Revenue, and other kind of and again, relevant agencies, and trying to make it a meaningful day that serves as a really good table setter for what the program actually will entail. And the rationale behind that is ultimately that as this procurement is going on in the background, we want to make sure that those folks that have stepped forward and identified themselves as folks that want to be served by this program, want to be active and engaged with the commission, that they're seeing value from that, I guess, that request or that we're submitting that application, that we're able to serve them in a meaningful way. And frankly, this is something I think we'd like to replicate moving forward every time. So I think as we build up this program, making sure that there's actually an investment from both the commission staff, as well as commissioners, as far as engaging with that cohort of folks. So that's what I wanted to address, is that as this is going on, I'm very confident that we'll still continue to engage and serve those folks that have stepped forward.
What's your anticipated timeframe for these orientation programs?
Well, that's probably a good segue into the next point that I wanted to raise, is that
Why don't you go ahead and raise that next point?
we do have those folks that have identified themselves as being willing to step forward and participate in the social equity program. What we've not done to date is bring forward recommendations on approving applications. The rationale behind that is, I think, I would seek the Commission's delegation of that authority to staff to evaluate those applications and begin to approve them or consider them, if necessary, reopen and reconsider them. The rationale behind that is similar to that of agents. As we register them, they're individuals, and maintaining, I think, an efficiency to our process is important, and making sure that we're able to do it in a way that is substantive, but again, efficient. So if that's the case, we want to make sure that if the commission is amenable to that approach, that when we approve an application, we're able to give them the next steps, not just congratulations, welcome to the social equity program, but instead it's congratulations, welcome, here's the next steps that we're hoping you'll engage in. So our vision is to really begin those programs, those seminars, orientations, I would say later on this spring, so let's say the April or May timeframe, which again really coincides with when that procurement would be out to bid.
Anything else? So if I'm listening correctly, there are two votes that you're seeking. One is to approve issuing the RFP, and the second is to delegate authority to the staff to approve the social equity program applicants.
That's right.
So before we ask for motions and vote, can I ask for comments or questions to the executive director on all the topics he just covered? Commissioner Powell?
I just have two comments on the RFP, if this would be the right time to raise it.
Sure.
So, this is a lot less open-ended than the last one, which I think is really good. I think that for the vendors, it'll help guide their responses. But there was one part I thought should be more open-ended, and that is, especially in the entry level courses where we have listed different types of positions within the courses that the participants should have adequate training to do once they complete
I've
those
noticed,
courses.
there's no page numbers here. Can you help me though in terms of?
Just above the document.
This page numbers for here, these are-
Oh, there is page number, okay, there's what page do you want?
Here, this is an example.
No, no.
So,
Okay, great, thanks.
so my comment is just, instead, where we've listed job types, if we could make that more open-ended and just say job types may include, and that way vendors could suggest other job types. Okay,
Second?
and the second comment is, there are two places where we've asked the respondents to disclose, conflicts or affiliations. So in one place, it says vendors must include any affiliations with the marijuana industry. And in another place, it asks them to disclose potential conflicts of interest. I was wondering if we could add more detail, ask them to list any affiliation with any applicant or licensee, and an ongoing duty to disclose any affiliations of that type that arise after the application is submitted.
Any other comments or questions on the RFP, Commissioner McBride?
I just had a request for an addition, and this is at page 12, and also an addition on page 16. One of the modules is security and working with law enforcement. I'd like to add at the end there's a really nice detail about security requirements, which I think is really important, but I think that equally as important are strategies for establishing positive relationships with law enforcement in the municipalities where a licensee would be located. So I think that for the appropriate tracks, if we could add that in as a component, that would be helpful.
Is it page 16 as well?
It's page 12, and I think page 16.
Okay.
I want to, I wanted to say that I think that this provides a really nice vision. I think it provides a much more substantial vision and something to respond to than what we did previously. So I think that while this process has sort of been something that has been, it's evolved over time, I think that where this lands is a really nice vision. So, it's great.
Any other questions or comments?
One other question.
Okay, Commissioner Tom.
When it comes to evaluating the responses, do you envision that it will be the same group that did it for the initial RFQ for consistency?
I think by and large, I think it's, depends largely on kind of bandwidth and availability, but I think exactly a similar group as we have in every procurement to date of a variety of commissioners and staff to then evaluate, and also a commitment of being there for the entire duration of the review as well. So I think that consistency's sake, I think again, the RFQ process previously worked well from an evaluation and a learning opportunity for us. And staff really invested on that, and I think as a result, we have a much better RFP today. So I think duplicating as much as possible for that previous experiences be where I would like to go.
Any other questions? I would like to ask for a motion to give the executive director authority to issue the RFP subject to the requests and changes suggested by Commissioner Title and Commissioner McBride. Also, obviously, subject to whatever edits and minor changes need to be made. So can I ask for that motion, please? Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Let the record show that Commissioner Doyle made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Title. All in favor? Let the record show the Commission approves the request of the Executive Director. Thank you. The second motion I would like to ask for is to delegate to the staff authority to approve the applications for the social equity program. Before I put that request for a motion in place, can you describe, Mr. Executive Director, your thoughts on the process, to the extent that you have thought that through yet, about how the staff would go about the evaluation process?
Sure, and again, I'd have to give Shakia Scott, our Director of Community Outreach, a lot of credit for, again, the vision that she's developed and I think really well articulated, as far as the review process, which again would be collaborative amongst commission staff, and kind of parsing out a number of the applications. But then similar to our process for the certification for priority status, of reconvening and evaluating in a group forum any question marks, as far as bearing in mind or keeping in mind that the elements for approval and the elements for consideration that need to be met for participation certainly include residency in an area of disproportionate impact for 12 months in some cases, or 5 of the last 10 years, but also items related to drug-related inquiries for the individual or a parent or family member. So I think some of that may come down to discussion of what is provided for evidence. Does that actually meet the threshold here? That worked really well in the context of certification, so I think envisioning a similar process, but also keeping in mind that parsing out through as not as few or as many people as possible, but the right amount of folks that can come back and reconvene on a pretty ongoing basis, and mindful of all the other activities that are going on throughout the agency. So I think what we envision is parsing out the applications, letting folks go through them, but also if there's going to be a need to reopen an application, making sure we have a very clear, articulate process for how long that application will be reopened, what exactly is missing, and making sure that it's a centralized account that is monitoring those outgoing messages as well as any incoming. So I think we have a plan in place. I think it's going to be collaborative and again parsed out to a number of different employees of the commission. But ultimately, it would come down to a recommendation to me as the executive director to approve or not approve.
Thank you. Are there any questions before I ask for a motion? Then can I ask for a motion to delegate the authority to the executive director to select and approve applicants for the social equity program? Have a second, please.
Second.
Let the record show Commissioner Flanagan made the motion to approve, seconded.
I thought that Commissioner Flanagan made a motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner McBride.
Did I get that wrong?
That's okay, I'm confused enough for that, your help, but thank you.
Let the record show Commissioner Flanagan made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner McBride. All in favor? Let the record show that the commission has approved, requested the executive director to delegate authority for approval of social equity applicants. Thank you. I just realized that there was one slide that we didn't, that I just didn't put up when we were talking about the orientation program, and just for the edification of the public. I think this covers what the executive director went over in terms of a five full-day programs led by the commission, provide preparation. But I also wanted to just highlight that we have 5.
These are not finalized or just finalized locations?
They're identified locations. We still need to identify specific arenas or maybe not arena, would be too big of an audience, but locations at least.
I don't know, there's a lot of interest. We'll see. Anyways, Boston, Springfield, Worcester, and New Bedford. I just realized that didn't come up in the previous conversations. I just wanted to highlight that in the slide here for the public. Mr. Executive Director, anything else on this topic?
Just to say, again, thank you for the opportunity to present both the RFP as well as the delegation that was sought, but also a commitment to come back at every meeting as you saw it today with that demographic information as well as other criteria as we begin to evaluate those applications, pulling out even more information relative to the tracks that are being sought, the locations that we're getting applications from. I know that's going to be important information to you as a commission. And obviously, of course, I think that's our expectation that the more information we collect and share with each of you is certainly helpful for you in your ongoing policy considerations as well. So we will continue to do that.
Any questions before we move on to the next agenda item? The next agenda item is an update to the municipal guidance. And once again, I want to thank my colleague and fellow Commissioner Doyle for taking the lead on this. I appreciate her efforts to actually speak, given how she feels right now. But I thought it was important to ask you to take the lead in terms of walking through the proposed modifications to municipal guidance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This should be relatively short. So all this is a 2019 update to the guidance for municipalities. It eliminates language referring to legislation that was pending in the last session. It acknowledges the transfer of the medical use of marijuana program and updates references to the program, and incorporates cross-references to guidances that have been developed by the Commission since the original municipal guidance was developed. So I hope the other commissioners have had a chance to look through it
Thank you again, Commissioner Doyle. Are there any questions or comments for Commissioner Doyle? Commissioner Pennell?
All of the edits look great. I just had one request, if we could add some more prominently, maybe the first page, just that the commission has published a guidance with recommendations for equity-based policies, and then a link to it.
Sure. I think we have it twice in there now, but do you want to connect afterwards and we'll find another place to put it?
Yeah.
As long as it's just the two of you.
No problem.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, then can I have a motion, please, to approve this guidance subject to the negotiations between Commissioner Pennell and Commissioner Doyle, which I'm sure will be quick and effective.
So moved.
Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Let the record show Commissioner Flanagan made a motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner McBride. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Let the record show the Commission has approved municipal guidance. Is that correct? Commissioner Flanagan, I didn't see your vote.
Yeah, aye.
I'm sorry, I dismissed it, I apologize. So unanimously approved the recommendation. Thank you again, Commissioner Doyle, thank you for your brevity. Before I adjourn and talk about our next meetings, are there any other topics that you wish to raise? Commissioner Title?
This is just in advance of the next meeting, so I distributed a memo earlier this week suggesting that we have a discussion toward our progress as it relates to some of the goals in our mission statement, namely to build an industry characterized by businesses of all sizes and robust participation from different groups. And I had some starting points for that discussion, so I just would thank everybody in advance for giving some thought to that and brainstorming it with the intent that we can come back in 2 weeks and have a thoughtful discussion about next steps.
So first of all, my thanks to Commissioner Title for leadership on this. My reiteration of my commitment to Commissioner Title as well as to the commissioners that it will be on the agenda for our meeting on, I guess, the 21st, 2 weeks from today. And I do appreciate the consideration that all the commissioners will give to this important issue over the next couple of weeks. So thank you. There being no other business in front of the commission, before I adjourn, let me just give you some updates on some upcoming meetings. First of all, the commission itself will next meet, as I just mentioned, on February 21st. Please note that we're starting an hour earlier than normal at 12 o'clock. We're back with our friends at the Gaming Commission, so nice commute for those of us in the Cannabis Control Commission. So that's the 21st. Other upcoming meetings, we have an advisory board meeting on February 14th, 2019. Sean, would you just give a 2-second update on the agenda for that?
It'll be a continuation of discussion relative to social consumption delivery, and then a reorganization of the various subcommittees and the makeup of them.
Great, thank you. Just so I don't get yelled at by my fellow colleague and Commissioner Doyle about forgetting to talk about energy, there is an Energy and Environmental Working Group meeting on February 20th at 1 p.m. at Suffolk University Law School. Am I off the hook at least for today?
Absolutely.
Great, and then importantly, I just wanted to mention we have talked about our regulatory timeline for the first half of 2019, and we committed to, as one of the first steps in that timeline, to have public listening sessions. Thanks to the good work of Chief of Staff Spelly, and who else should I thank for that? But thank you. Oh, and our Executive Assistant, Henry Hall. We have 2 dates and locations, March 12th, at 11 a.m. at Western New England University School of Law in Springfield, and the following day at 11 a.m. back here in Boston at the Mass Gaming Commission. So thank you for your efforts, and that is, as I said, one of the first and most important steps in our regulatory review process is to hear what the public has to say. So I personally, and I think the other commissioners are very much looking forward to that. There being no other business for the commission, I would like to ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned as of 2:40 p.m.